The Heroes and the Hidden by Kittyquat on AO3. Episode 41. Chapter 35. No, I feel this different. Hitoshi stared out the window as Midnight's car pulled up to the door. Today would be their first day of actual school, and he was excited. Even though it was a Friday and tomorrow wouldn't be school, he would still be able to get out of the house and see what a hero school did. He was going to prove everyone wrong. Eraserhead rubbed at his eyes, downing another cup of coffee. It was already his third one of the morning, but Hitoshi didn't mind. Eraserhead set down the coffee and turned his back to grab Hitoshi's bento box. Hitoshi took his stance and grabbed the coffee from the counter, downing it in one gulp. He had always enjoyed the taste of it, along with the slight energy boost it gave him. He hadn't slept well since Midnight had taken Izuku away. Which was rude, might he add. They were perfectly fine together, and they couldn't decide it for themselves. He set the coffee cup down and returned to his spot at the window quickly. He had been with the heroes for 2 months now, the end of December rolling up. He liked the house more than he liked the old ones, but he still couldn't bring himself to talk. He tried, he really did, but every time a word came up, it got stuck in his throat and choked him. Eraserhead turned back around and picked up the coffee, grunting when he realized it was empty. Just ask Kid, and I'll make you your own cup, he says, handing the mento to Hitoshi, who stares up at him, wide-eyed. Just don't tell Hizashi, okay? Hitoshi opens his mouth to speak, but closes it, nodding. He shrugs off the present mic backpack he had, placing the bento inside of it. Eraserhead holds out his hand, outstretched to Hitoshi kindly. Hitoshi considers it and nods, placing the bag over his shoulder and grabbing Eraserhead's hand firmly. The itch, feeling starting instantly, but he ignored it. The hero was happy that he had taken his hand, that he could ignore it. Eraserhead opened the door and led him outside to the car where Midnight awaited. Izuku waved at him through the window, smiling slightly. Hitoshi frowned. Izuku had another nightmare. The heavy bags and lack of dimples in his smile proved it. He waved, opening the door and clambering in beside Izuku. As the car pulled away, he waved at Eraserhead, who smiled and waved back. Are you ready, Hitoshi? Izuku asked, clutching his midnight backpack to his chest. The fake Eraserhead goggles hung from Izuku's neck, clashing against the darkness of his outfit. He opened his backpack as Hitoshi shrugged, pulling out another pair. Hitoshi grabbed them and put them on, grinning at how they fit. He reached over and grabbed Izuku's head, pushing him onto Hitoshi's shoulder. Izuku grumbled, but allowed it, closing his eyes, humming slightly. Hitoshi rubbed Izuku's arm, caringly. He needed to sleep more, and Hitoshi would do his best to make sure he did. Luckily, the streets were crowded at this hour, and it would take a while to arrive. Hey, Shinsou, Midnight said, glancing back at them in the rearview mirror. You get any sleep last night? Hitoshi frowned before shaking his head slightly. She wouldn't get mad if he didn't sleep. Plus, he might fall asleep on the car ride. Her quirk was strong in the small places. She chuckled, handing back a protein bar. It's not much, but I don't think Shouta would have thought to feed you this early. Hitoshi nodded, taking it from her and opening it slowly. He took a bite, savoring the taste. He had been eating a full meal a day, and the hero seemed proud of it. His stomach no longer hurt every time he adjusted, and he no longer saw specks when he stood up too fast. Do you think Toga is eating okay? Hitoshi asked, caringly. He took another bite of the bar, shutting his eyes at the taste. It was adorable for Kayama to see. Kayama smiled, reassuring and nodding. She's a strong girl. She'll get all the food she needs. Hitoshi seemed to accept it, looking out the window at the stopped traffic. Realistically, she had seen the news. People were ended up dead or barely alive, drained of their blood in the streets. The knife wounds on all the victims were identical, along with the puncture wounds of a needle. Her victims had gotten sick from the unsafe syringes she used. They all said the same thing about a young girl with space buns. Her space buns. They must have been knotted and gross by now. But Kayama couldn't help the motherly worry that she felt. She had held the girl and brushed her hair, had talked to her and made her hairstyles according to her request. And now the girl was running through the streets taking the blood of innocent civilians. And she didn't know why. Tsukauchi had called the three of them in the late last night, after the kids were asleep, to discuss his case with them. Truthfully, he would probably be in a lot of legal trouble if the HPSC found out about it, but they weren't allowed to know the cases that didn't get assigned to them. But they were the best people for these cases. The first issue was Toga. She had started by only attacking high-ranking officials who were involved in scandals of sorts. Video footage had shown multiple of these men trying to take her to bed, which made Midnight sick. Toga had taken the blood she needed and then left. She had patched up their bite marks when she did so, always glancing at the camera and mouthing a sorry. Her case had changed about the time that Izuku had been found. Camera footage from a computer in a room had told them what they needed to know. They had watched as he sucked the man dry of his blood until he was pale white. How she had looked feral, blood dripping from her mouth. She didn't look at the camera then, but they could see it in the way her eyes slit and searched the room. She was no longer as sane as she had been. She had given in to her hunger. The next case of concern was the vigilante who ran through the streets. They had seen vigilantes before, but none as goal-oriented as this one. His goal: tear down trust in heroes. He captured villain with no obvious quirk and then zip-tied them with a note mocking the heroes. It was frustrating, really. He had been on the streets for quite some time, but recently his attacks were bolder, more focused. He had recently taken down an entire fighting ring by himself. Again, he didn't display a quirk at all. Footage showed him with a flamethrower, but that was it. He couldn't even legally be called a vigilante without quirk use. Then there was the homeless teen that Tsukauchi had met up with. They had tried tracking his number to remove him from the streets, but got no hits. Meaning the kid was using a burner phone. And from what Tsukauchi had told them, he was thin, with burns along his hands and face. Scarily, he reminded everyone of an older Izuku. The kid pushed out of society and hurt because of it. Kayama already knew she would take him in if they ever found him. Izuku could use a mentor. So what if it was a homeless teenager? The last and probably most distressing case was that of the monster. It hadn't been given an actual name besides the monster. Tsukauchi had admitted that he knew more about the monster than he had told the few heroes he wanted to listen. The monster had DNA mutated like All Might's, but something was different. The quirk factor that sat intertwined in everyone's DNA was not only present, but it was stretched and warped, as if it could grow more. It stood out against everything else identical to All Might's, besides the color of it. It needed to be seen with a quirk. But the monster was an ever-changing black-red color that seemed to move as if alive. It breathed along the others in the room. All Might had never done that, according to Tsukauchi. It had been months since anyone had actually submitted footage of the monster, and clamors had died down. But Kayama knew that when the worst happened, the car behind her honked, scaring her out of her thoughts. Pulling forward, she turned onto the side street, taking shortcuts to the school. She still had a patrol to get to, and she couldn't be late if she wanted to rise in the rankings. Izuku grumbled from the back of the seat as he rubbed his eyes. "We're here already?" he asked, right as she pulled up. She could see Hitoshi nod from the mirror as she pulled the car into park. Unlocking the doors, she got out, pulling out Izuku's door. She had made sure to keep the child lock just in case. "Did that nap help any, Izuku?" she asked as he climbed out, rubbing his eyes. He simply shrugged, helping Hitoshi out as well. "Children!" the rat said from the gate, clapping his paws together. And if it isn't one of my finest students. Kayami rolled her eyes, shutting the kid's door. Nice to see you too, Nezu. Don't turn the kids into anarchists just yet, please. Nezu simply smiled at her as the kids entered the school grounds. She huffed, opening her car door. Goodbye, Mrs. Midnight, Izuku said as he powelled into her legs. She chuckled, picking the small kid by his armpits and placing him on her hip. Looking into his eyes, she booped his nose, smiling. I expect you to make Nezu's life difficult. Get out all your wiggles. Izuku giggled, nodding happily. She set him back down, watching him run up to catch to Hitoshi and the rat. God, he really was just a kid. She got into her car and pulled out as she shot a confirmation text to Hizashi and Shouta. She had a patrol to get to, and she couldn't be late again. Hopefully the bastard that was her old teacher didn't ruin the kids' minds too much. But something told her she wouldn't be that lucky. Ooh, I like this. I like this so far. Next chapter is called And If I Need a Rhyme. Izuku and Hitoshi get a proper tour. We meet another ward of UA. Notes, this is a little longer, around 250 words. Oh, so a whole 20 minutes. Okay. That was just because the interaction with the new ward went a bit longer than I wanted, so the last part might seem a bit rushed. Also, yeah, 250 words does equivalent to 220 minutes, roughly, right? Interesting. Interesting. I don't really have much to say, so, yeah. Anyways, as always, my raindrops, make sure to eat, sleep, drink water, take your meds. Have a wonderful day or night. Link to my Discord server and socials are down in the description. Subscribe to see more of my content, and thank you so much for watching.